I'm talking to Doly Begum. She is the Ontario NDP member of Provincial Parliament for Scarborough Southwest in my riding. At 29, she was the youngest NPP in Ontario. Hello, Ms. Begum. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today. I am really concerned about climate change and how it's going to affect my future and the future of friends all around the world. I really don't feel like the current Conservative government is taking this crisis seriously, and I was hoping you could suggest ways to help. Ontario has the second highest greenhouse gas emissions in Canada, but the province's weak environment plan won't reduce emissions. Is talking to your local elected official a good way to create change?
Wow. Well, first, let me just say how impressed I am, Robert. It's such a pleasure to meet you and to have you come to our constituency office, because I think you've just done the first step to creating change at any level. And welcome to the riding as well. Definitely, when we talk about any levels of change that we want in our community, I think we have to reach out to those who are representing us. Those who have been elected to serve the community should be held accountable to create that level of change. And the fact that you're reaching out to your local MPPs is that first step to making sure that I get to learn about the things that concern you.
I read that the best way to communicate with your local MPP or MP is to figure out who they are, both at a provincial and federal level. Write a letter and request an in-person meeting. The most important point was to always be kind, polite, and respectful, no matter how frustrated you feel. What are your recommendations to help kids get their point across effectively to government officials?
You can reach out through email, by phone. One of the things that we actually do is that I have schools where students from even elementary schools actually write to us. So just last week, we dropped off a whole bunch of answers, like letters that I have responded to students from Samuel Hearn, which is one of the local schools, and they regularly write to us. And it's concerns about reconciliation and with the Indigenous communities, climate change, road safety, a lot of different things that you have concerned about. And one of the best, most effective ways that you can connect is you can just show up to their offices. It's a government office, right? You can just show up. You can write to them and ask your questions. You can also suggest things. One of the things that we do as a local representative from our office is we have newsletters where sometimes we'll add a little section that you can sort of rip off and send it back to us without any cost. And then there's a little section that says what concerns you.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You got involved very young in politics. Do you have any advice for kids who think they are too young to be listened to?
Well, I think you're never too young to get involved in politics. I think young people like yourselves, your opinions matter. I think your voices matter. You have a lot to contribute, a lot to share in terms of the values that matter to you. And sometimes it's not always that a certain age group makes the right decision. I think it's about our knowledge, it's about our experiences, it's about skills, it's about your surrounding and the communities you live in. So you will know what is affecting you in your day-to-day lives much more than I will. So I think it really depends on the people and the communities and the experiences. And I think young people, most importantly right now, we have to encourage them to get involved, because one of the things I hear a lot amongst politicians when is, young people don't vote. And we have a responsibility to encourage young people to get involved. I just want to say I'm so proud of the work that you're doing, because this conversation and the type of conversations you're having will hopefully encourage other young folks to get involved as well, and that really makes an impact.
In our old neighborhood, the MP told us no one ever came to talk to him to ask him to take climate action. It was just not one of the issues he heard about. We need to change that. Do you talk to a lot of people who are concerned about climate change?
Wow, I definitely do. And I'm really sad to hear that political representatives are finding that's not one of the top issues in their communities, because I know in our community, that's a big concern. In fact, it's so important that we actually came together as a local community to start a local group called the Scarborough Southwest Environmental Group. And that was to have a group of people come together. Even during COVID, we met online to discuss what kind of actions we can take, whether it was at a policy level in Parliament or at a local level in our community. So steps you can take to learn about food habits that impact our environment, clothing habits, local cleanups. We even have an environmental newsletter that talks about effective ways that you can address climate change and really protect animals, plants, and obviously the environment and our planet in general. Because I think when we talk about climate change, sometimes it's about the future, it's about children and next generation. I think it's here already. Don't you think we're facing the climate crisis right now? The fact that I think people couldn't even breathe. There was air pollution warnings. Our city was one of the top cities for air pollution. That says something about the way we're treating our environment. That says something about the way we're treating Earth. So it's not something that's in the distant future. It's here and we have to do a lot more.
Yeah.
And as political representatives, it also means that we have to raise our voices in parliaments, all levels, municipal, provincial, and federal.
And because of the air pollution, I had to stay home from school for like a week.
And Ian, I'm sure that's not what you wanted, right? You wanted to go to school.
Yeah. I'm really scared about the fires in Ontario, how it is impacting the 700 species at risk in Canada, and the smoke that is polluting our city. The Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre declared the 2023 wildfire season was the worst in Canada's recorded history. As of June 28, 3,003 fires have burned 8 million hectares, or 20 million acres, and there are 487 active wildfires, 253 of which are uncontrolled. Our Premier Doug Ford refuses to acknowledge that this year's fires are made worse by climate change and has cut the forest fire budget by 67%, or 142 million, which I worry will affect many of the over 200 species at risk in Ontario. When something is wrong in your province, you should go talk to your MPP or your MP about it. Could you tell the government that I'm worried?
I will definitely. I can promise you that. When we're back in Parliament, one of the first things I plan on talking about and raising my voice in the legislature about is this topic that you're talking about, and especially the numbers that you shared. The fact that we have over 3,000 fires, and the fact that research is showing how there are fires that are uncontrolled, and when we have a government that is not willing to even acknowledge something is wrong. It's like saying, when you have a cut and you say, well, you know what, there's nothing here. Then it gets infected, right? Then it gets worse because we're not treating it. And our government, especially the premier, saying that, oh, there's nothing wrong. We don't have to worry about it.
It's a cut in the world.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And he's not willing to even put a little bit of water to heal that damage, to clean up, to figure out what we need. And the most important part of it is investing and making sure there are enough people to actually go and control that, so that we're not facing things like the air quality issue that we talked about, so that kids like yourselves are able to go out there and go to school, play, and live their lives, and to make sure that we're actually protecting our species and our green spaces. And unfortunately, when we have a government that doesn't acknowledge that it as an issue, forget even taking action and creating solutions. So I am very concerned, and I will definitely raise your concerns in Parliament.
Thanks. What are some of the ways your government is trying to reduce carbon pollution from transportation, buildings, industry, and electricity?
Well, we've got quite a few different ways that we're trying to solve this. One of the things I would recommend is taking a look at our Green New Democratic Plan. It's a holistic outline that we created, taking on some of the initiatives from across the world that have been researched, that scientists have suggested, and putting an economic lens on that as well. So there's a layer of talking about jobs, talking about our local economy, and how do we help that while we are green, while we are looking at climate change and the current reality of the environmental impact as we have different types of jobs. And that is a holistic way of looking into this issue for the long term. And it's work in progress, so we welcome anyone with any feedback to us as well as we go forward and make changes and improve this. The other things that we've done is actually made recommendations in the House. So we've proposed legislations in the House to make sure that we address climate change. We talk about transit, the way we need to increase the amount of buses and subways, and improving our local public transit system so that people are not reliant so much on just cars. Another step is to make sure that we hold those who are polluting. So we've got some big polluters in Canada, and we're not really holding them accountable. So we have a provincial legislation that actually myself included and some of my colleagues, especially our environment critic, Peter Tabbins, the MPP for Toronto Danforth, we have proposed to hold polluters accountable and have a system where the province actually can make sure that there is real consequences for pollution. Another solution that I recently proposed as well with Peter Tabbins is to make sure that we do not ever bring fracking, which is basically very, very bad for the earth. It's like drilling into the earth for minerals and things, and it is extremely dangerous. It's extremely painful for our planet. It damages and you cannot undo that damage. And it's been done in other provinces, and we want to make sure that we ban fracking in Ontario as well, because we're hearing rumors that there are some who are interested in doing that. And it's like saying, oh, there's things wrong, but let's do more of the things that are wrong. Instead of saying, why don't we put a ban on things that we know are to be very, very bad for our forests and our planet in general.
They know what they're doing and they're
Still doing it.
still doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering my questions and for joining us today, Ms. Begum. And remember, together kids can save the world. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, we can. Thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you.